Let's do
that.
Thank you.
Okay, Curtis is telling me he can't be recorded. I think he's in a secure location, so we'll deal with that when the time comes. Okay, very good. So back to my agenda slide. Let me put a quick plug in for the Colorado 14er event this year. Come on out and play SOTA, whether it's a 14er or whether it's just your favorite SOTA peak, it's all good. And the task force that runs this event met, and we decided there were some really cool things about the 10-day event in, we have to mute everybody, 10-day event in 2021. That was a pretty unique opportunity to have more activity, and really we had a lot of activations going on. But 10 days every year is probably a bit much. And what we settled in on was do our usual 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. Then we kind of added bonus days on either side, Friday and Monday. So it's now a 4-day event. As we discussed it with various people, what happened was all the retired people said, I don't want to go out on Saturday and Sunday. It's too busy. I want to go on Friday or Monday. And of course, all the people that work for a living are like, well, I got to work on Friday and Monday. So this is kind of a compromise, and Joyce and I will probably be out every day. So, adapt that to what works for you. All righty, let's do some short introductions. I've got, let me stop sharing this. This is a little tricky on Zoom because okay, I got to admit some more folks here. Because the order that you show up on the screen keeps moving around, and so it's hard to track who's going on. But we have about 31 participants dialed in. A couple are doubled up. Let's say we have 30 people. I allocated 15 minutes for introductions. So if you could think in terms of 30 seconds a person. Did I do the math right?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. And you can say whatever you want. If you want to say, hey, I was born in a cave outside of a hill in Kentucky, and that's fine. If you want to tell us your latest SOTA activation, or maybe something new going on in your life, you just upgraded to extra, whatever's on your mind, you got 30 seconds. So I've got a list here. I'll probably miss somebody, but I'll get most of you, and then we'll loop back and work it up there. So actually at the top of my list is Denny, KB9DPF, who's actually my lifelong friend from Indiana. He's been out here a few times, but to do SOTA. But go ahead, Den.
Okay, thank you. KB9DPF, that's correct, Denny, and from Fort Wayne, Indiana. I just couldn't get away from this area. I was born and raised here. Bob, it's always great that your friends go and move into great areas and stuff that you like to go visit, where you can hike and do SOTA activations and things like that. So that's really good. And just recently retired. I mean, real recently. So looking forward to maybe getting out and doing a little more of those SOTA activations. And,
Yeah, definitely.
So anyway, that's all I've got, and pass it on to the next one, Bob. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Dan. Actually, let's do us real quick. So I'm Bob, K0NR. I organized this thing just because it's fun, and nothing too new. We've been out we did a couple of POTA activations, and we did one SOTA. We did the SP099, EZ99 in South Park. And it was pretty cold that day, but not too bad. What do you have to say?
I'm Joyce, K0JJW.
looks like I'm the only female today. We gotta work on this,
Yeah,
guys.
Kathy.
Come on.
Come on, Kathy.
All
Okay.
right. Okay, let's go over to Mike, K0FYR.
That's all right.
Yeah, hey everybody, Mike from Divide, Colorado. I'm relatively new to the SOTA stuff. I only got my technician license last March. And so I think since then I've done probably 25 summits in about 10 different states. I travel a lot for work. But that and doing parks on the air as well. And so I've probably done, I don't know, 60 some park activations in the same amount of states, I guess.
That's awesome.
Excellent.
Let's go to Dave, W0ADV.
Dave, W0ADV. You'll hear a lot from me, see what I'm about here in a couple of minutes, so I'll just leave it at that. I'm the crazy one, apparently. I like that.
That's what Joyce said. Okay, Steve, WG0AT.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're good.
I've had some audio problems tonight. Anyway, yeah, I'm Whiskey Goat, wireless goat, WG0AT, and grew up in Southern California on a surfboard and headed inland until when I was pumping gas one day in Colorado. The guy says, "What's that thing on top of your truck?" And I realized it was far enough away from the Pacific Ocean, and mountains have been my passion ever since then.
What was on your truck? Surfboard?
A surfboard.
Not real useful around here.
Right.
Okay, Matthew, KJ4DER.
Yeah, Matt Glow, KJ4DER here in Longmont, Colorado. Been here about 5.5 years. Did most of my growing up back in Virginia where I got licensed. New-ish to the group, still have my technician, so I'm operating mainly 2 meters, but looking to maybe upgrade to general here this year.
All right, very good. Mike, W0MCB.
Hey everybody, new as well. Mike, originally from Mass. Spent a lot of time in the woods of New Hampshire, the White Mountains, doing a lot of hiking growing up there. Lived in California for 10 years, did a lot out there. My grandfather was a 70-year ham, kind of a big CW aficionado, and kind of last year in 2021, I read an article about SOTA, kind of prompted me to get my license, tech, then general, and then kind of went dark for a while, got hurt, got a new job, spent a lot of time working. So, but trying to hit it heavy this year and get out a lot this winter and this summer. And yeah, been in Colorado since 2012, transferred here in 2012 from San Diego. So loving it out here in Colorado. So that's it for me. I appreciate it. Good to meet everybody, and I'll pass the torch.
Welcome. Curtis, KC5CW.
Hey everybody, I live in Castle Rock, Colorado, but been spending quite a bit of time out on the East Coast lately. And let's see, looking forward to field day this year. Andrew, KD5ZZK, and I are going to activate a summit down in New Mexico and camp out up there. And then he's bringing his four-wheeler, so he's going to go run around the different summits, and we'll do a whole bunch of summit to summits. And we're even hoping to do one from Manju Peak to somewhere in Arizona that's pretty far away, that he's done the topo look on it, and it's a straight shot, and we're hoping to do 1.2 gigahertz across that. So some of you VHF and above aficionados will probably want to get in on some of that with us, but good to see everybody, and look forward to talking about some of my adventures with outer space here pretty soon.
Okay, cool. Mike, AE0 India Hotel.
Hey, everybody. I'm here in Fort Collins. I'm relatively new to the hobby. I've had my extra class license for about 2 years now. Not a lot of practical experience but I was an electrical engineer graduate in 1985, and I didn't want to sit behind a desk, so I joined the Marine Corps. Spent about 30 years doing that, and I'm retired now, but I needed a hobby to, keep me outside. And so, boy, this SOTA stuff just caught my interest. And so I'm mixing a little bit of the outdoorsy stuff with getting back to my engineering roots. I'm doing some, building some homebrew stuff, but right now I'm working on Hans Sommer's QDX digital rig. And I've got a Pi Moroni, really small display that fits right on top of the Pi. So I'm trying to make a portable digital rig to kind of augment my HF stuff. So very nice to meet you guys. And I look forward to, talking to you out there on top of a mountain one day. Thank you.
Yeah, very good. Welcome. Dan, KN0MAP.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. KN0MAP, I'm from Woodland Park, and as my call sign says, I know maps. But as of Friday, I turned in my government laptop back to the Department of Interior, and I'll be retired. I'll still keep no map. But yeah, so my plan of this year is to, I'm going to do not walk, which is everything outside of the W0C. So like on over my shoulder, that Steptoe Butte, I did that 1st of January. That's in Washington State. And I plan to try and do every SOTA association in the US, at least in the continental. So that's my plan. We'll see how it goes. I'll start a thread on the groups. KN0MAP, clear.
If you look at the data about people that do a lot of activations, being retired is a real plus. Gives you more time. Okay, John, KM4PEH.
All right. Yeah, I became a ham in Georgia, and someone introduced me to SOTA there. I activated one peak in Georgia, and then I moved here, and it's a little bit harder to get up to some of these peaks here, but it's been a great way to learn the geography of Colorado, and I've really enjoyed it. Yeah, KM4PEH, over.
Okay, thanks, John. Carrie, KX0R, our leading activator, what, 5X Mountain Goat? I lost track.
Oh, 7. Oh, it's been years and years. It takes forever. I grew up in East Tennessee, in Knoxville, and during the 50s and 60s, and I learned to hike in the Smoky Mountains. And not too long, I think I got licensed in 61, and somewhere along when I was in high school, a buddy of mine who also had a license, and we spent did a lot of stuff together. We went up in the Smokies for field day and ran a 6-meter station with a homebrew radio that I built. And we made a ton of contacts. It was basically a VHF activation. The Forest Service let us use a fire tower where there was no one in it. And we put a dipole up at about 55 feet. And we worked all of East Tennessee on AM with about maybe a water tube going to the antenna. It was a vacuum tube rig, and it ran on a bunch of old lead acid batteries that a guy gave us or sold us for next to nothing. And it was quite an experience. It changed my life. And later I got involved in QRP when the QRP craze started with solid state and in small rigs, and all this stuff happened. And then my friend KT5X, Fred, suggested I get involved with SOTA, and I resisted it for a while, but then I finally caved in, and of course the rest is history.
Well, that's funny. Very good. Steve, K5SJC.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Steve here. I live in the Dallas area, and I'm married way over my head, I'll be honest. My wife's side of the family has some property in Lake George. So like Dan, I'm just on the cusp of retirement, so I am looking forward to spending a good amount of time in Lake George late spring and most for the summer, hopefully. And actually, I had the opportunity to meet Kaiser FYR Mike, and he and I worked at least my first activation together back in September. So I'm looking forward to spending more time out that way this coming up. Thank you.
Very good. Are you in Texas now or?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay, well, good.
It's
Glad you-
cold here, by the way. I know most people don't think it gets cold in Texas, but it's
Is it below zero?
not this time around. This time last year, yes. Today, no. It's 20 though. It's cold for us and freezing rain, so we're inside.
Yeah.
That is cool.
That is cool. Okay, Dave, N0DET.
Turn on the mic there. Hi, everybody. It's Dave, N0DET in Longmont. And it's really fun to do these and see people's faces that go with the call sign. I may not remember your name, but remember your call sign, right? And anyway, I've been a ham for, it throws me every time I think of it now, 41 years now. And started as a high school student in the 3-member high school ham radio club, I think it was, but guided my career and guided my way to SOTA. I've always liked outdoor portable operating even before SOTA was a thing here in the States. So it's a good match, especially for those of us that live in these areas, right? So that's it. No big plans this year as of yet, other than to just keep activating and getting out and having fun when it's not 9 degrees, according to my phone, hopefully warmer.
All right. Thanks, Dave. Let's see, Gary, W0MNA.
Yeah, good evening, W0MNA and W0ERI.
Oh, there you
You're
go.
not alone, Joyce.
There you go.
All right.
Well, of course, we're in Leavenworth, Kansas, outside of the prison. And our plans for this summer are to do quite a bit of traveling, and hopefully by midsummer or so, we should hit our mountain goat status, which has not been an easy task living in a state that has 0 summits, and our closest 2 summits are 4 hours away. Everything else is farther. So it's been a task, and so we've had to focus on the chasing side of things, which has been a lot of fun. And I've probably worked all of you guys at least 100 times, and so has Martha. And looking forward to working you again a lot in the future. And it's been a lot of fun. Glad I could join in tonight. And so is Martha.
Yes.
Anything to add, Martha?
I just got home, so he says, sit down.
All right. So yeah, so Gary's over in Kansas. As you may know, Kansas does not have a SOTA association for some reason. We're not sure. It seems to be the lack of summits. And so he's registered at W0C in that association and is the #1 chaser. I think Martha's #2. Is that?
Yes. That's correct.
You're
Yes.
both at the top there, I think. So you guys
#1
are
in US, #2.
okay. We got another Gary W5 ODS, also from outside of Colorado. Where'd you go?
Yeah, good afternoon, good evening, everybody.
There you go.
I guess my claim to fame is I've been a ham like Carrie since 1961, but my enthusiasm for ham radio really picked up when I started working with SOTA about 7 years ago, maybe. And my other claim to fame is that I met Steve, WG08T, in California in about 1971. So he was kind of an inspiration to me ever since that time. So I've had a long distance relationship with him. And the picture I have here is the last activation I did in Colorado, Mount Harvard a couple of years ago, and I didn't make it out there last year. I hope to make it out again to Colorado this year. So that's my short summary.
Okay, thanks, Gary. Next up is Matt, K0MOS. Matt is the W0C Association Manager.
Hey guys, Matt, K0MOS, live in Boulder, love everything outdoors. And since I have a radio, now I love the outdoors and playing with radios. That's about it.
That works.
More later.
Let's see, Mike, WF0M.
Yeah, Mike here. I'm going to be giving a talk later on this evening, and I have an introductory slide. So I'll just pass the baton back to you for Bob.
Okay, thanks. Ray, KD8, not sure of the rest. Is it EQA?
EQA, that's it. New to ham and new to SOTA. My anniversary will be May 1st when I get my general license. I'm in Colorado Springs. Excited to get underway, get some points, find some activations that have never been activated and be the first. Just all the excitement that comes from a new adventure. I was a mountaineering person before a ham, so I was already on a quest to become a 14 finisher. And now it gives me something to do in the off season and something that adds to the fun in the 14er season. So that's it, KD8, EQA, back to net.
All right, thanks. Jerry, K0ES.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I became a ham in 2018. In 2019, January, I finished my first Morse code course through CWA, and my instructor reached out to you guys, and in fact, Bob and Brad contacted me, and because of the very first dinner that you did, Bob, back in 2019, right? Isn't that the first one?
Yeah.
So through that, I met Mark and Walt, and frankly, it's been life-changing. I think that's a fair thing for me to say. And so I'm pretty much involved with SOTA and thoroughly enjoy this hobby.
That's awesome. You know, it's interesting how many newer hams we have, not necessarily super young, but new to ham radio. And one thing, I teach a technician class, and one thing we run into is people get their license and then they sort of go, well, now what do I do? And they're not really sure. Well, if you get hooked on SOTA, you don't have that problem because there's something to do. It's a really nice focus to get on the air. Okay, James, KI0KN.
Yeah, thanks, Bob, and hi, everybody. James Isaac I'm between Loveland and Berthoud, and I guess I did my first SOTA about 6 years ago. The only peak I hold as a first activation up in near Sundance, Wyoming. I haven't done a ton of peaks. I'm an IT manager at CSU. I've been there 29 years. But yeah, you know, the goal. So during the lockup for the last 2 years, as we got sent home for COVID, I lost 32 pounds. And that has changed my enjoyment of hiking a lot. And so I'm kind of motivated to get out and start doing peaks a lot more now that it isn't just a breathing challenge for me. So just did Panorama Peak 2 weeks ago, right after a short conversation with K0MOS. Had an awesome time until I got off track and ended up waist deep snow for about 3/4 of a mile, but we made it and got it on the map. So goal for this year is to just keep doing them. Going to do Tarryall Peak, which is right across the street from our field day site this year in June. Looking forward to that one, and just try and I guess the last thing is I sold off a few radios and put an order in for KX2, and I'm really hoping it shows up before winter bonus season is over so I can break it in properly.
All right, very good. Jim, N0IPA.
Evening, everybody. Semper Fi Mike. I'm a COVID ham. Ran my licenses all together, and then almost immediately got into SOTA as I thought, well, now what do I do with this radio? Look up there. Okay. So out west in Sedalia, I'm a stone's throw from Bennett Mountain and Long Scraggy Peak. So if you activate either of those two, please don't go home without swinging by for a beer.
Uh,
right.
and there's no IPA.
There's no idea. Okay, Cap, our Southwest Colorado representative, W0CCA. Cap, you're muted.
Oh, there we are.
There you go.
Okay. Hello from the hinterlands. I guess I'm the either the western slope or the southwestern Colorado representative way down here. Some of you may not think about it, but I'm about 400 miles away from most of you, and I'm still in the state of Colorado. I've been doing this for 10 or 12 years, and like George, I've got the very same individual to blame for getting me started. KT5X down in Santa Fe came up to visit one day and took me out, and before you knew it, he put a bunch of radios in my hands and antennas and things, and 10 or 12 years later, here is history. This year, I made myself, it's a good thing in this activity to give yourself some goals. And my kind of modest goal was to set 250 unique peaks. You know, I've got about 10 repeats in there, so I've got something like 260 activations, but I mostly tried to do unique. And I've gotten over 2,000 points now. I think maybe the next goal is, as one of the other hams here said, to get as many associations as I can. I think I've got about 25 or 30 associations now. And it's just a really good excuse to get you out and around in the world, because there's a lot of 500-foot bumps in other places in Colorado. So I go seek those out. I guess that's it.
Okay, thanks. Wayne, AD0KE.
There we go. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Bob. 80KE here. Yeah, I haven't been active as I like. I've kind of switched gears in things, outdoor activities, taking up ultra running and probably a triathlon coming up this summer. But the last peaks I have done were Richtofen or however you enunciate that, Hags Peak and Mahler. And those were pretty tough, pretty fun. The tough part about, I think, some of those is the UHF being so far away from the front range, right, Bob? Right, right. I find that pretty tough to really get some contacts out there, and relying on people driving by on the highway there to get them. But it's been a lot of fun this year. Yeah, we'll just see what happens here. I look forward to that 14er event, though. I'm really glad that we've expanded that to the 4-day again, because last year that 10-day was a blast. So hope to catch y'all on that one for sure.
All right, thanks. Let's see, Shane, N0QLR.
Yeah, hello, good evening. Yeah, so my name's Shane, and I'm originally from the Chattanooga, Tennessee area, down next to the Smokies, and started hiking peaks down there and hiking the Appalachian Trail. I moved out here about 15 years ago and immediately dove into climbing peaks and hiking, and got my technician's license in 2018. And yeah, just really because I was out hiking alone more, so having a form of communication. So and then yeah, I kind of went stale for a while, really didn't do a lot, and then found out about SOTA at the end of 2021, so just a few months ago. And yeah, had a couple of weeks off of work, and that pretty much, I was trying to get out as much as possible. Had a great time, and just new to SOTA. Really feel like in a lot of ways still very new to ham. So learning a lot as I go along. So yeah, glad to be here. Glad to be climbing the mountains. So thank you.
Awesome. Welcome, Shane. Let's see, Walt, W0 Charlie Papa.
Hello, Bob and everybody. Nice to see everybody this evening. Joyce, hi.
Hi, Walt.
Mary Kay, K0ZD is sitting over here.
All right.
My sometime activator partner. We're in Belize right now, Victor 31, Delta Juliet. So if you're out activating and you get a DX call, don't be shocked like Steve was one year. Hi, Steve. That's all. Thank you. Good to see everybody.
Thanks for dialing in from the Caribbean. How's the, you on the air down there a lot?
I was in the ARLDX CW contest last weekend. I did a single band 15 meters CW entry, and I had a lot of fun. Made 2,000 QSOs on 15 meters.
Awesome.
It was a
All
blast.
right. Let's see.
I've got a neat little amplifier here that I brought with me. It's called a Yuma. It's made in Finland. It's 12.5 pounds, KW out.
Huh.
It weighs it probably weighs less than an ICOM 735.
Nice. Okay, thanks, Walt. Hi to Mary Kay. Simon, W0C, the nighttime activator.
All right, thanks, Bob. Yeah, so so Simon is the American pronunciation and the corresponding name. Originally, I'm from Poland, where you know, my family would call me Shimon. SZ is kind of like an SH. I guess two different linguists came up with different ways of encoding the same sound, SZ versus SH. Yeah, so I was born in Poland. Spent some time, so I'm a transplant from there, spent some time in Illinois where I became an engineer, and came to Colorado because I love the nature. I happened to visit a friend here, and I just decided that I want to move here for the mountains and mainly for the mountains. And yeah, I started hiking a lot. You know, I bagged like most of the 14ers. I think I'm missing like 4 or 5 of the more remote and technical ones. And along the way, I discovered ham radio relatively recently. So I've been in Colorado maybe 10 years, but only last year did I become a ham. And yeah, actually, it was kind of easy for me to get the extra based on I'm an engineer, and I was kind of driven to get like a shorter call sign as well. So got pretty lucky there. This Whiskey Victor 0 X-ray, I think Vox means a voice in Latin. So I was kind of excited when I got this one. Yeah, like you said, you know, I try to get out as much as I can. Usually, you know, after work, maybe I'll like shave off, you know, an hour off of work, maybe get out, like beat the traffic 3-4 p.m., get on the mountain somewhere close to Denver. And that's why you hear me sometimes, you know, around like 7 p.m. or something like that, right? It's a little easier to do in the summertime, but I've been doing this in the winter as well. And sometimes I'll do like a longer weekend, maybe take Friday off, and that gives me a chance to check out some surrounding associations within like, you know, within like 6-8 hours driving distance. And I guess trivia fact, I just updated my QRZ page because one guy was giving me a hard time that I don't have any info there. So yeah, I guess it's easier for people to look me up now. Thanks.
All right, thanks. Let's see. Another out-of-stater, Dennis, WA2 USA.
Hello, everybody, and I want to apologize. I did not bring one of my better computers with me, so no video. Maybe that's a good thing. Anyway, I was born and raised in upstate New York. Did a lot of hiking in the Adirondack Mountains when I was a young fellow. But I spent the last 37 years living in Southwest Indiana, where I got involved in SOTA and became the sixth North American mountain goat behind a bunch of guys from New Mexico. And for a goal right now, my goal is to become a Colorado mountain goat. And I've been coming out to that wonderful state for the last eight years. And I'll be out again this summer for 2 months in the Salida area to to finish off another round of points to hopefully become a Colorado mountain goat. So that's about it for here. Oh, by the way, we're vacationing down here on a small island in Florida. So if anybody needs a DX contact, give me a shout. Take care and thanks.
All right. Thanks, Dennis. Let's see, Scott, AK6Q.
All right. Hey, guys, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, good, good. Yeah, good evening. Sorry I was late. Had to finish up some chores and dinner. I guess we're asking how we got started. Is that correct?
Just, you got 30 seconds to tell us whatever you think is pertinent.
Okay. So I grew up here in central Colorado in Gunnison. I've done a ton of hiking, a lot of 14ers, pre-radio, got my license, and now I am hooked on SOTA. So there's my, how I got to where I'm at.
Okay, very good. I think we got another Scott, AK5SD. Did I read that right?
Yes, you did. Yeah. I'm Scott, AK5SD. Glad to meet everybody. I'm a frequent chaser, occasional activator. And the reason for that is I live in Central Texas, and it's about an 8-hour drive for me to get to any summit of interest. So I have the Gary and Martha problem. I've been a ham since 1979, but I was active for a few years back then, and then I got out of the hobby. And around 2014, I got back interested in the hobby, and shortly thereafter, I heard Kilo India 4 Sugar Victor Mike calling CQ Mountaintop Portable, and I'm like, who's this loony who's this Looney Tune on a summit calling on his ham radio? So I gave him a shout, and he told me all about it. And I knew immediately after I talked to him that that's what I wanted to do with ham radio going forward. So I've been involved in SOTA since about 2014, 2015. I've got about 480 activator points since then, and 3 of those were earned in Central Texas. So I do a lot of traveling around. Last weekend, I had a 4-day weekend, so I drove up to Lawton, Oklahoma. There's a few summits up there that I did. Mount Scott, Elk Mountain was a really fun one. Enjoyed that trip. And then back over the holidays, I took my family to Maui. You can see my Maui shirt. And that gave me a chance to go up to Haleakala and activate Haleakala, which is officially called Red Hill. So those are my recent activations. I enjoyed that one immensely too. I'm an electrical engineer by trade. I design integrated circuits for a living. I did a stint at Flex Radio as their chief RF analog engineer for a couple of years. And yeah, that's basically me in a nutshell.
Okay, thanks. I think I got a few more that I missed for one reason or another. I think Mark K0EHR.
Yep. Hi, everybody. Mark K0EHR. I'm in Littleton in the shadow of Denver here. Colorado native, world traveler, 34 countries. I've always said if I found a better place to live, I'd move there, and I'm still here. So that says a lot. Been a ham for only about 2 years. Back 2.5 years, got my extra 2 years ago. And I got into SOTA, when I started taking the CWA class from Jerry, K0ES, started getting interested in that because there were a lot of SOTA guys in the class. And then Jerry kind of encouraged me and became my Elmer of sorts. And we did my first activation last July. And then in combination with Walt W0C, we did a total of 4, or I did a total of 4 last summer. So I'm looking forward to doing a lot more. I'm only 26 points towards my goat. So a little bit of work to do there. But anyway, very excited to be in the right place at the right time, and looking forward to meeting everybody at some point.
Awesome. Let's see. I think is it Mark Vickers? I don't think you have a.
Yeah. So yeah, Mark Vickers. I'm Kilo 7 Echo X-ray K7EX. Good to meet all you guys. So seen so many of your call signs or talked to you guys on the radio. So this is super cool to meet you guys. So I'm coming from downtown Denver and one of the high rises here. So I actually do have surfboards here, Steve. So they're not much good for me, but I brought a bunch of them from Oregon via North Carolina, where I have kind of moved throughout the country. So Dan and Cap, here you guys chasing the different associations. I'm on number 16 right now. So that's actually one of the goals that I have as well, of like looking how many different associations that I can get around, and also want to pick up some international associations too. So good to meet you guys, and back to net.
All right, thanks. Okay, did I miss anybody? Anybody else not introduce themselves? That's amazing. This is really hard to do on Zoom because everybody keeps jumping around. Okay, with that, we will jump into the short topics. We actually went kind of long on the introductions, but I think it's actually pretty important, and I certainly enjoyed it. I hope you did too. Get here in just a snapshot of your fellow SOTA folks. Let's see. So let's go to the short topics here. I'm going to turn the timer on, and basically I'm going to let you know when you've used up 10 minutes, and at that point shift into Q&A, and you can have 5 more minutes after that for a total of 15. And if you can go shorter than that too, that's fine, but that's the limit. Somebody's asking to be let in. I don't see anybody. Oh yeah, Matt dropped off. Okay, we'll get Matt back in there. Okay, and Dave is up, W0ADV, and I think you can just share your screen or do whatever you're going to do. And you're going to tell us about your string of 10 pointers.
Sorry, and 1 second. Let me just get my. I gotta rejoin. 1 sec. I'll be right back.
If you're a presenter, you should try sharing your screen and see if you get a security request to enable that. And then if you do, you can enable it. It'll make you rejoin, just so we're not going through this every time.
I thought I enabled everybody to share.
Yeah, it's on the local computer that you have to redo that.
Okay. All right, there we go. Click, there goes the timer.
Okay, now I can hear me. Hey, so yeah, I'm Dave, W0ADV. I'm just gonna try to whip through this as quick as possible, but yeah, I'm just gonna mostly show you some photos of my 10-10-10 14er event from last year. Instead of doing 10 peaks over 10,000 feet, I went one step further into 10 peaks over 10, or that were 10 points. And since I still have a job, I had to do it in 8 days. Yeah, so I'm Dave. I basically climb things. I'm the crazy one. I'm not super technical. I won't get into any antenna details or anything like that. I'm not that guy. So like I said, this is mostly just going to be pretty pictures. Just for background, for my SOTA adventures, I'm kind of chasing the high point peaks while I still can. So I'm trying to keep my average up, which I don't know, is for better or for worse. So yeah, for 10-10-10, where can you find a bunch of high peaks? Well, down by Cap, Whiskey Zero Charlie Charlie Alpha, in the San Juan Mountains. So I live in the Front Range, and I've found out that the San Juan Mountains are just far enough away to not make it a nice overnight easy trip. To, you have to have a day of driving, go up, 14er, and then have a day of driving back. And it just turned out to be kind of a lot. So I was able to do 2 of them, Sniffles and Wetterhorn, and for the Ham 14er event in 19. And then, so that leaves 12 named 14ers. And I sat down with the 10-10-10 event and thought, what if I could just do them all? So first thing I did, just see if it's possible, get a map, draw lines, start making circles on it, just see if this is even something that can be done. I found out very quickly I had to center it kind of around these 2 main objectives, which is the Eolus group up in the Chicago Basin that you have to take a train to. And then the Wilson group, which is just a really, really long day. So you don't, you want to think about doing that group after, a rest day of sorts. So I started making a loose plan, wrote it down in a Google Doc, and this turned out to be immensely helpful just for sharing with friends and family, and as well as having a printed copy of this. So at the end of a long day, when I don't know where I'm supposed to be, it's kind of like I've hiked 15 miles and I'm tired. I can just pull out my sheet of paper and it says go to this trailhead. That was very, very useful. I won't talk much about this, but if you know what an inReach is, they're awesome. If you don't, they're awesome. I know everyone's like, oh yeah, get a ham radio, you can talk to people. Also very valid. However, if I want to talk to my mom or someone, I can't say, hey, jump on 20 meters at noon and we can, have a chat. So the inReach proved to be immensely useful, especially because I did this trip solo. And it gave me a lot of confidence to be able to be off grid for a long time. So I'll just say that if you know, if not, look into it. They're awesome. Last thing I'll say is also Gaia GPS. If you haven't looked, check out the layers. There are so many of them now. I'm kind of a map nerd. Here's a screenshot I took the night before I left. This is the fairly real-time smoke overlay. So I was able to see kind of where the smoke conditions were. That came in very handy because I drove down, and my first peak was Uncompahgre. I drove down in the dark, camped in the dark, woke up in the dark, and this was my first view of the sunrise in the San Juans. And it was nice to have that confidence to say, hey, there's going to be smoke, but not too much smoke. So this was going up Uncompahgre, and it turned out to be okay. This was the most smoke I saw the whole time. This is on the summit of Uncompahgre. If you've been up there, it's a pretty severe peak. Bob's giving the thumbs up for the
Great picture.
the Yagi there. I'll let him talk about 1.2 gigahertz and all that. The next peak I was up at was Sunshine. Again, early mornings, trailheads. It's beautiful. I know I'm preaching to the choir here. Go up mountains. It's so cool. I'm a big fan of the high peaks, getting above tree line. Highly recommend. It's you get to have experiences like this up on. This is going up Red Cloud. Sunshine, I ran into Wayne, 80KE. That was kind of fun. He'll tell the story about how I lied to his face. Don't listen to a word he says. This is a pretty typical setup for me activating in the summer when I have a lot of time. You can see I've got a 1.2 Yagi, a 70 Yagi, a 2 meter Yagi, and a 4-band HF antenna. I'm just kind of juggling all these different things, kind of which band is active. If you like end-fed antennas, oh my gosh, boy, do we have the talk for you coming up. You'll learn all about what I'm using here on HF. This is going up Handies. This is one of the more mellow 14ers. The next day, super great if you're in the area. It's a nice easy hike, couple miles. The keen-eyed people who know the area will say, wait, of those 12 14ers, there's only 9 SOTA ranked summits. And this is where planning came in again. So this is, when you sit down with the map, you're looking at SOTLess. I don't know how to pronounce that. Sotal.as is a really great website. I was able to find a sub peak. So this is on Whitecross, a sub peak of Handies that's also ranked in SOTA. And this wound up being one of my favorite days, just because the sun was out, had nothing doing, and I was able to work lots and lots of HF and just kind of hang out on the summit for an hour or two. So again, that's part of that planning that came in so key. After 4 days, 4 14ers, I got a hotel room, did some laundry, enough said. The next day I was able to book the train to go, it goes from Durango to Silverton, and about halfway it just kind of stops and lets you off at a bridge kind of in the middle of nowhere. They call it the Needleton stop, and this is the gateway into the Chicago basin. From here, it's a pretty mellow 2,000 feet, 7-mile vertical day up to where you can camp for the night. This is the approach to get to the ELS group. There's 4 14ers and 2 of them are SOTA peaks up there. I made the decision to do this without a bunch of Yagis and mostly just HF, the end-fed antenna, and the portable rig because I was backpacking. So this is the first photo I took the morning of that day. It's taken at 4:57, early starts, headlamps, but I was greeted with a really, really great sunrise. This is coming, the sun coming up a little after 7, and you can see a little bit of wildfire smoke still in the air. But this is the photo from, ironically, Sunlight Peak. And if you've been up there, you also know you have to take the requisite selfie at the very, very top. It's a little 5th class scramble to get to the summit block there. So this is what I do. I'm the crazy one, solo, getting up on top of rocks like that. So one of the neighboring peaks, Wyndham, is a SOTA summit. So I was able to set up HF here. On these big kind of days, a lot of it was, rolling out the HF, making contacts, and as soon as I make my 4, call CQ for another couple minutes, and then I had to pack up and go because you're doing 3 and 4 peaks in a day. So it's not a lot of time to hang out and make a lot of contacts. I will say, I know some in the group we might hear about how VHF and UHF is really, really great in the San Juans and some of these less densely populated areas. You're not going to get a lot of VHF and UHF activity. You're going to have to maybe rely on HF unless we learn something from Bob. This is on EOLIS, another kind of 4th, 5th class scramble. Quick, this is my day pack for doing the EOLIS group there. You can see very bare bones. That's an 18-liter pack. Nothing extraneous in there, just water, layers, radios, and a first aid kit. So what's a SOTA presentation without a photo of a mountain goat? Gotta have it. Coming back down from the EOLIS group, got to ride the train down. This is a 7-mile downhill day. I call this a rest day. Any day where I get to drink a beer on the train, I would call it rest day, which is great. The next day was the Wilson group, which is that was that very long day. That's 18 miles set, like 6,000 or 7,000 feet of vertical. So this is I went up, started up El Diente, did the traverse to Wilson Peak, and then over to Mount Wilson. Just a lot of vertical. You can see the peak on the right there. In order to get to the peak on the left, you have to go all the way down to the bottom of that basin and then back up again. So just oof, big long days, super fun. This is what I live for. Even on long days, you have to stop and smell the flowers. And I'm trying to impress all the planning that has to go into a trip like this. I say, you think you've thought of everything, you've drawn the maps, you've done the miles. And then you think, oh yeah, the next one's going to be a short drive, right? Then the next thing you know, you're taking your truck up and over mountain passes in the San Juans, and you realize that you're still hours and hours away from San Luis Peak, which was the last one. I wound up camping hours driving from the trailhead, and it was just a lot, So I thought I had everything covered, and then it turned out that there's always something you don't think about. So I didn't wind up summiting until about 1 or 2 p.m. So. Yeah, so that was it. 10 SOTA summits, 12 14ers in 8 days. I did about 80 miles of hiking, 28,000 vert over 8 days, 12 14ers, 10 SOTA summits, 115 contacts. Like I said, a lot of these HF days especially were kind of get up, roll out the antenna, make the contacts, and roll it back up again, because you're doing 2 and 3 summits in a day. So yeah, special mention to Whiskey Bravo 6, Papa Oscar Tango. He out in California was my first HF contact most of the time. As soon as I get that spot out, he was always there. I think I worked him every single day. So super fun. Yeah. Time.
That's your 10 minutes.
Got it.
That's awesome. I mean, any one of those peaks to me is pretty impressive. Okay, maybe not handies, but they're all hard. And then you just strung them all together. I just can't imagine that. Questions for Dave?
I've got one. It looks like you were on some pretty remote peaks there. Did you happen to have any cell service on a lot of those peaks, or were you completely disconnected cell service wise?
By and large, the San Juans, there's not a lot. Sometimes I would say from the peaks, you can hit a tower in a town. And so, yeah, on occasion, I would say maybe half of them, I would get a bar of service and able to, send a text, send a spot. A lot of it was calling CQ on HF and the first contact saying like, hey, can you spot me? Can you spot me?
Yep, that's exactly why I was asking.
Yeah,
yep.
I'm not into CW yet, so I don't have RBN hole and all these other things. I would love to get set up with APRS to SOTA and all those things as well. But yeah, so that's something to think about, something to consider.
I would just compliment you on the photos. I love your photos. And I think you also have a website with some impressive photos if you want to give out your URL or something.
Yeah, I can send it to the group after or something. Yeah, I'm really into photography. I'm trying to get into doing videos as well. And thank you. And that's the point of this presentation, is just to be inspiring, get people up in mountains.
Not trying to cut you off. I'm just trying to take up my.
Anyone else before we hand it off to Bob?
Other questions?
Cool. Thanks for your time. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's really impressive. Okay, are you seeing the slide with Joyce and I standing there?
Yep.
Where is my, sorry. There, let's do that. All right, you got to time me because I'll talk way too long.
Okay.
Let me know when it's 10 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, so that's Joyce and I on Spinney Mountain, not nearly as high as what Dave was on in South Park, and that's our usual routine. There's a 2-meter FM mini mobile radio in my fanny pack, and I'm holding the 3-element Yagi for 2 meters. I'm really good at holding that antenna, and Joyce is running the radio. She's really good at talking to people on the radio. So that's what's going on there.
And I log.
And she's got the logbook on. So usually doing a tag team kind of thing. So I want to talk about VHF and try and get you thinking about what's possible, because I keep hearing people saying that you can't talk very far on VHF, and that's not my experience. How popular is VHF, UHF for SOTA? I pulled this data out of the worldwide database, and the short story is about 20% of SOTA QSOs are above 50 megahertz, and most of that's 2-meter FM. That's the dominant mode, right? That's what everybody has, so no surprise there. When we teach our technician license class, we usually start by telling people, well, on VHF, UHF, it's usually line of sight. And then HF has this other common behavior where you do the skywave thing and you get longer distances. Well, that's a good rule of thumb to get started, but it's actually a little too simplistic. The line of sight model is, okay, you got somebody transmitting on VHF, it goes at least to the optical horizon, and then we talk about a radio horizon that's a little bit further. But really, the signal doesn't just stop there, right? It keeps going. And so I call that the non-line of sight region. And the key point is these little arrows are thinly dashed because the signal does get a lot weaker, right? There's a lot of attenuation. So you've got signal going over the horizon, it's just smaller. And then we have a similar phenomena on with mountains. Sometimes you think about, well, I've got this radio and the signal bashes into this mountain and it stops. Well, that's not true either. It keeps going. Let's see, it refracts, it diffracts, what am I missing? It reflects, right? There's all different propagation modes where it sneaks around the corner of a mountain or over the top or whatever, and you get communication into the non-line of sight region. Again, the signals are smaller, so now the station performance becomes a bigger factor. Okay, so with that in mind, let's talk about some practical things. So I took this map of Colorado, and I said, well, Mount Herman is one of my favorite summits, so we'll use that. And I said, usually I can work about 100 miles on Mount Herman with some kind of decent station. And so I drew a circle with radius 100 miles. And that pretty much matches my experience. If you're up there, I can work up to Greater Denver, no problem, on 2-meter FM. I can usually work up to like Fort Collins without too much trouble. Definitely down to Pueblo, maybe a little further south. It's just nobody lives there. And that's the whole problem, right? So when Dave talks about being down in the San Juans, that 100-mile radius doesn't cover nearly as many ham radio operators as it does if you scoop up Denver in your circle, right? But anyway, that's a pretty good approximation. Of course, going west, my signal is going to bump into those mountains. So I'm not going to do as well to the west of Mount Herman. I make contacts out there, but it is attenuated. This is a predicted coverage using an online program called Mobile Radio. It's free, offered by VE2DBE. And so I did a simulation there, and is that blue or purple, the dark? Okay, the purple is where the signals are strong. And then what's that other color? Yellowish? Yellow, the signal is quite a bit weaker. And you can see, again, from Mount Herman, it's kind of what you'd expect. To the west is actually pretty difficult. The signal gets blocked a lot. But you got this half circle to the east that's quite good. In fact, this shows going up to Fort Collins, no problem, down to Pueblo and out to, this is I-70 going here, and just past that turn is Lyman. In fact, I have a zoom in on that. So Lyman's right there. So yeah, I can work out past Lyman out onto the plains pretty easily. So that's one thing you could do, is do some simulations of propagation. A couple other places that a lot of us have operated from. We got this great mountain just to the southwest of us called Pikes Peak. You probably have heard of that. Pretty easy to get to, and has outstanding radio horizon to the east. And then way out in Kansas, a little not quite as well known, is Mount Sunflower. Unfortunately, not a SOTA peak. It just doesn't have the prominence. But it is the highest point in Kansas. And if you're ever out that way, you might just want to stop in and see it. But it turns out that if you map that out, that's Pikes Peak to Mount Sunflower. It's just, I don't know, a few miles across the state line. It's 163 miles, and it's actually pretty easy to work from Pikes Peak with like an Omni antenna and 30 watts of power. That's gonna work pretty well. And I've done that a number of times. And so that's well beyond line of sight, right? Line of sight is, I think I calculated about 112 miles from Pikes Peak. So something like that. So there's one example of what's possible. Of course, it really helps that Pikes is sitting there towering over the eastern plains of Colorado, right? It's positioned very well. There's another mountain that's pretty interesting. This is Capulan Mountain down in northeastern New Mexico. As you can probably guess, it's a dormant volcano. It's a good visit for tourist reasons if you want to go down there. It's also a good SOTA summit. And I said, I want to activate Capulan, and I want to do it on VHF. And then I looked at the map and I go, man, it's like 150 miles to anywhere from Capulan. And I didn't think I could count on just catching people out mobile or hiking or whatnot on 2-meter FM. So in this case, let me show you where it is. Here's the map. The state line there is Colorado, New Mexico, and it's kind of in this northeast corner. It's not actually that far into New Mexico. So it's a long way from everything. It's not very close to Colorado Springs. It's not very close to like Albuquerque or Santa Fe or any of those either. And so in that case, I basically made skeds. I contacted the serious VHF guys in Colorado and New Mexico, and I said, please help me. I'm going to be on this SOTA summit with a 5-watt VHF radio, and I really want to be able to work somebody on single sideband or CW, and because I didn't think FM would be reliable enough. And so that's what I did. It turns out a bunch of guys got on in Colorado Springs and Denver. I worked them without much trouble. And then my best DX for the day was down by Albuquerque, N7KA. And what is that? 184 miles. And it turns out, like I said, I had 5 watts. He was having trouble hearing me on sideband. I think he was running a couple 100 watts at his home. And so I could hear him pretty well. He wasn't hearing me. And so we did the trick that weak signal VHF folks do all the time. You just stay on the same frequency and you flip over to CW and you see if you can get the, make the contact. And we did that, and we did make it. So got him in the log. So that was a good success, a good feeling to be able to pull that off. I'm at 9 okay. And then one more fun event is 3 Mile Mountain. I know a lot of you guys have been up there. It's down by Dix Peak, 20 miles south of Hartselle, something like that. This was a combination VHF contest, SOTA, POTA. It's in the Pike National Forest. And it's not a very difficult climb. So I actually drug along the FT 991. You can see it there. It's kind of heavy for hiking, but it wasn't a difficult hike. And my 3-element Yagi, not shown. And I was working a bunch of VHF contest stations on single sideband. All of a sudden I hear Larry N0LL calling me, and turns out Larry has a magnificent VHF station over in Kansas, and he was really strong. I was working these guys in Denver, and Larry came in stronger than them, and that turned out to be my best 2-meter SOTA DX so far, 372 miles. So I was pretty happy with that. How we doing?
You're over.
I'm over. Okay, and then in closing, we've been messing around this past few years with 1.2 gig, and there I'm on, I think this is Orm's Peak. I think Steve took this shot with the 16 element Yagi and a little Alinco HT. And then during the 14er event last year in 21, Dave's out there doing sunshine and red cloud and all that. And we actually worked on 1.2 gig, which was, 152 miles. That's my best 1.2 gig so far. I'm sure that's Dave's too. And here's the picture from Dave's end. He's got the same 16 element Yagi. I think you probably saw it in some of his pictures. And he reported that we had a hard time making the contact, but he found that if he pointed at that notch, that seemed to be the sweet spot. And so that worked. And then here's another picture of him operating down there. So anyway, we could talk about 1.2 gig all day too. It's kind of an interesting challenge, and something we'll be playing with again this year. So I'm a couple minutes over, but time for questions or comments. Anybody there?
Yeah, Bob. So I guess common wisdom is that the higher frequency, the more line of sight it is. Does that make any sense? Or I'm just wondering if that's really true. Like,
well, usually, let's see, some general rules of thumb. The lower frequency, longer wavelength will have a little bit better chance of diffracting around obstacles. And so you get a little bit less line of sight. And as the wavelengths get shorter, it tends to be more of a stoppage of the signal. The path loss tends to be higher as you go up in frequency. But there are some counteracting effects. For example, it's pretty easy to carry a 16 element Yagi that has a lot of gain on 1.2 gigs. 16 element Yagi on 2 meters is pretty darn big. So you probably you'll never get as much gain. So that helps. Other questions?
Did you guys homebrew those 1.2 gig Yagis?
No, those were built. They're made by Comet Antenna, and I've got a shorter one that I bought from eBay that's probably about half as long. Sometimes I carry that, but its quality is not that great, but it works. And then yeah, I've got a couple other antennas I'll use on 1.2 gig.
That's straight FM on 1.2, right?
Yeah, so we're using FM. So there would clearly be an advantage to using single sideband and CW. The equipment is more expensive and bigger generally. Most people would they'd probably end up with like a 2 meter all mode transceiver plus a transverter to get single sideband up at 1.2 gig. And I haven't chosen to do that. And it seems like most of the SOTA guys are just buying the Alinco HT and, having at it with that. So that's what most guys are using. This is really popular down in Arizona. They've done a lot better. They've done well over 150 miles with low power handheld radios.
Oh, I have a question for you, Bob. I'm always struggling with HTs and Yagis and the log because I only have 2 hands. How do you do that?
You bring your spouse along and you take turns running the radio and the other person logs.
Thank you.
I think people have other solutions too, right? They run a tape recorder or tape audio recorder or whatnot to handle it that way.
Bob, I have a question for you.
Okay.
So I'd love to do some sideband or CW on VHF and UHF. Don't know how much activity there is along the Front Range, at least. If I were to haul equipment up and just start calling, what's your experience with that? Or do you tend to make skeds ahead of time?
Either make skeds or choose VHF contest weekend, because those guys will come out on a VHF contest. Or if there's a net, there's like a morning net along the Front Range on 2-meter sideband, you could catch it that way. But yeah, just going out randomly and expecting to find somebody doesn't work on 2-meter sideband.
Yeah, they call it the beam spinners net, I think.
Yeah, the beam spinners, those guys are always on. But they're
Great.
kind of early in the day for me. I'm usually not on the summit.
Yeah, it would be.
Okay, that's my time's up. So let's pause there. And next up is Mike, WF0M.
All right, let me do a screen share here. Let's see, it looks like that would be what I want to share. All right, can people see my screen?
Yep.
All right, great. All right, so a little bit about who I am. I'm pretty new to amateur radio, actually. I got my technician in 2019, November of 2019, and followed that up with my general in December and the extra in January. So kind of a 1 month per license there, did it fairly quickly. And I started off, when I was an extra and all I had was a Bofang HT. And then I think for my birthday that year, I got a ICOM 9700 and followed that up with an ICOM 705 because I'd go on the summits and realize one of the summits I went on was out in the middle of nowhere, and I struggled mightily getting my 4 contacts. It was a backpacking weekend, and I backpacked in with my wife and my son, and then I went up to this summit that took me probably 4 hours to climb. And I got up there and I'm like CQ SOTA on 2-meter FM, and just, it got to the point where I was seriously wondering whether I was able to activate or not. So it's one of the reasons I ended up buying an HF radio, is I didn't want to, experience that again. So I did started doing HF on summits and things like that. So that's kind of my history. Very new to the sport. I actually met Bob, I think, at the very last, what do they call those, swap meets or something like that, where hams get together and I bought his book and learned all about doing VHF summits on the air. So anyway, Bob has kind of introduced me to the whole thing. So it's your fault, Bob. I'm here. So some of the things that I generally have learned over the short time I've been doing this, and for when I do a really long hike, like you'll see, I did Gray's Peak in October just recently, and I did Torrey's as well as part of that. And so I didn't want to really add much to my pack there. So I just took an HT along because I pretty much knew from those peaks I could hit the metro area if I needed to. And because I did them on a weekend, people are out, listening usually. So I can pretty much do what I'd call a peak that's in range of the Denver metro area, and I don't even bother spotting. I just climb up there, start calling CQ, and you get a pileup. One of the things that hooked me on this sport to begin with is, I think one of the early ones I did was Pikes Peak, just to try everything out, so I wasn't so remote. And I called CQ on Pikes Peak on 2 meters and just got a huge pileup, and I was hooked. Those pileups are so much fun to work. You are the star of the show, and there's nothing like it. So anyway, that's kind of what I was out to do, is how can I get myself noticed, right? So I had a couple of times when I'd start using my 705, which is, 5 or 10 watts, depending on what battery you're using. I would still have a little bit of trouble getting a hold of people on a remote peak, because I don't do CW. I haven't learned it yet. That's I'm still working. So when I retire, I'll learn CW. But right now I'm doing single sideband phone on HF, and that's it. So I get out there on 20 meters with an end-fed half-wave antenna, start calling CQ with 5 or 10 watts. And because I'm up high, I don't usually have too much trouble getting my 4 contacts. And I usually get a fair amount more than that, but I don't get those pileups that you get on 2 meters from the Denver metro area. And so I said, how can I improve that situation? And let's see. And so the way I found I can improve it. So here's some of the summary stuff right here. You really don't need to spot yourself on 2 meters if you're in range of the Denver metro area. But it can be if you're not within range, right? So going to 20 meters helps a lot on those remote peaks. And then a lot of times what I'll do is I'll do a SOTA, pre-spot, telling people I'm going to be at a certain place at a certain time. Well, what I found, because I'm also a POTA chaser and a POTA activator, what I found is that for whatever reason, there seems to be a lot more people monitoring those POTA websites for spotting than those who monitor SOTA. And so I wanted to take advantage of that. And so what do? I do a dual activation. I started doing some dual activations this year, and wow, it really made a difference. Now realize I'm not hauling a 100-watt radio up to the top. If I had a 100-watt radio and I was calling CQ from a summit, probably wouldn't need to worry about this so much. But with 5 or 10 watts, and you're not doing CW, you're doing single sideband phone, it helps a lot if you can get some attention. And so what I would do is I would ask people if I was in cell range, I'd spot myself, and I would get 20 meter pileups. And if I'm not within cell range, the first person I'd get a hold of after calling CQ, I'd say, hey, do you happen to know how to spot me on POTA, and ask them to spot me. And as soon as they spot me, holy cannoli, the pileups start again. And I just love working pileups. That's so that I found that doing a dual activation really helped me get those pileups that I was after. So what does that mean? What's the extra work in doing what I call a dual activation? I'm doing both a SOTA activation and a POTA activation. Is there a bunch of extra work for that? No, not a whole lot, really. As a matter of fact, I find it's actually easier the way I do my logging to do a POTA submission than it is to do a SOTA one. I happen to use an electronic logger, a DX Keeper, but any logger that'll export an ADIF file will work. And so the way I do my logging in the field is I use paper, but even if I miss something, all my QSOs are recorded on my 705. So I can come home and play back everything and make sure I get it all right. But I transcribe it into an electronic logger when I get back into the shack. And then all I have to do to do the POTA submission is simply export an ADIF file and email it to somebody. That's all it is. So it's like 5 minutes of extra work to do a POTA activation. And so I can call CQ POTA, CQ SOTA while I'm up there. I can spot myself the POTA page or have somebody else spot me. I'll get pileups, and it makes it a lot of fun. Obviously, if I'm doing 2 meters within if I'm doing 2 meters, POTA spotting doesn't help. that much, because most POTA people that are chasing or hunting, they call it in POTA, most POTA hunters, they're on HF. And, you know, so it doesn't help a whole lot with 2 meters. But basically, that's, you know, going forward, I'm going to always do these dual activations because I have a much better chance of getting pileups, which I love to work. And it's really not much extra work at all. As a matter of fact, doing the SOTA logging where I have to, you know, enter in each QSO separately is a lot harder than doing a POTA. A POTA submission, like I say, takes me less than 5 minutes. So very easy. And you might wonder, oh, that's nice, Mike, but how many places can you do a dual activation? And what I've found is, you know, of all the ones I've done so far, North Table Mountain in Golden is the only one that I've activated that I can't do a POTA with. That one's got RFI problems anyway, so I'm not sure I'm going to go back there. It's a nice hike, but there's a lot of RFI up there. But you can look at all the different national parks or national forests here in Colorado that are eligible for POTA. And so many of our SOTA peaks are in these national forests. And so in my experience, most of the SOTA activations I've done are eligible for POTA as well. All right, so my summary. You ever find yourself struggling to get those contacts? And there's my timer for 10 minutes. Try spotting yourself on a POTA spotter if you're in a national forest. The extra logging is very little, and pileups are a lot of fun. And
Yeah, I got you 10 minutes. Questions? So I'll comment, you're not alone. A bunch of us have kind of discovered SOTA plus POTA. Somebody said it must be SPOTA. And we do it not so much for the pileups or anything. It's just when we can do both together, it's just another fun thing to do. N0 IPA's been doing it. I don't know if some of the other guys may have.
I have a question.
Yep.
Like I did in POTA when it first came out, and all you had to do was upload your logs to a logbook of the world. Is that still the way you do your logs, or is there something different for POTA?
well, for POTA, what you do is you just export an ADIF file with all your QSOs from that activation, and then you just email it to the to an email address based on, I forget what, it has to do where you did your activation. And so basically, I think there's 10 different email addresses you can mail it to. You have to figure out which one you mail it to, and that's all you do. You email it to them. And 2 weeks later, you usually get some kind of a response from that person saying your file uploaded successfully and everything was good.
So did they import from our, like, some on the US reflector for SOTA, someone posted, hey, there's a whole bunch, I think it was Elliot, who said, you know, he checked in on POTA and he had a whole bunch of awards for POTA and he hadn't even done anything. How did that happen if we didn't upload any ADIF files?
Yeah, what those awards likely are their hunter awards. So you don't have to ever do an activation in POTA. And if you end up answering somebody's CQ call and they happen to be doing a POTA, you're going to get in their log and they're going to submit your call sign into their log, and then you're going to end up with hunting credit on the POTA website.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Yeah, you got guys like me sending in dual logs. I'm doing a SOTA activation. I send it to the POTA group.
If you guys go register with POTA, you probably have some QSOs already.
Yes, you're welcome. And don't wait to start learning CW, brother. It'll change your life.
Yeah, I know. It's like I said, I got another 3-4 years before I retire here, and
don't wait, man. Don't wait. You're missing a lot of fun. You're missing a lot of fun. I'm telling you. Trust me. I went 43 years without making a CW contact. 43 years from the time I was a teenager until August of last year. I relearned it and did it, and I'm having a blast. It's a lot of fun, man. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, I definitely have respect for all those that were licensed back when CW was a requirement.
And here's a little nugget too, and Bob can speak. A lot of these guys can speak better to it than I can. Signal to noise ratio. Study that a little bit. Your brain, it's amazing what you can pick out of the noise with a CW signal as opposed to a sideband signal to be able to enable to complete the exchange, right? Which is what the objective is, at least for SOTA and POTA stuff. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Good presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Hey, you should be able to take your same ADA file and upload it to the SOTA website. And I've been doing a bunch of work on that, trying to figure out how the different fields work. If you look at my blog, k0nr.com, there's some articles out there.
Yeah,
okay.
that would be helpful. I'm sure I'm doing it the slow right now, and I would like to make that easier.
Yeah. Okay, we're at time on that one. And next up is Matt, K0MOS, Summit Names.
Okay. Yeah, that I expanded that a little.
Whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah, I still think I can do it in 10 minutes. So let's see. Here we go. Can you see that?
Yep.
All right. So I want to go back to the 10-10-10 event really quick. We've been there with Dave. But since we kicked it off here on last year's Zoom meeting, I want to wrap it up in this Zoom meeting. So we gauged the interest here on the Zoom meeting, whether we should arrange some sort of celebratory event for the 10th anniversary, and the interest was kind of there. So we created the organizing team to come up with a suitable theme and some rules, and we came up with the 10-10-10 event, which kicked off together with the 14er event, August 7th, for 10 days, with the goal to activate at least 10 summits over 10,000 feet within the 10-day time frame. We had 668 participants, not bad, and the 26 activators activated 64 summits with almost 3,000 QSOs. And last but not least, without all my co-organizers and contributors, it would not have happened. Thanks, Dave, Bob, Jim, Steve, and Dan. Dan is not here today, I think, but everybody else is. So thanks, guys. That's the wrap up for the 10-10 event. So weird story popped up end of last year, and it's kind of convoluted, but has a loose link to SOTA. In late 2021, there was a news article, and maybe some of you guys saw it as well. In a nutshell, in 2020, they found some human remains in Rocky Mountain National Park, and they were finally identified as a missing hiker who disappeared in 1983. Not quite a Nazi, but still, he was out there for quite a while. So I forgot all about that until I received an email in December 2021 from a guy named Dan. And his email, he wrote that he was climbing Mount Richthofen in 2020. Mount Richthofen is also a SOTA peak. And he said he found human remains in Skeleton Gulch. Good name for finding some human remains, I guess. And now you're probably wondering, how is that related to SOTA? Well, Dan followed a trip report filed by KX0R, Carrie. He wrote that he activated in 2015, I believe, and filed the report on my website in 2016. So that's the connection to SOTA. And finally, they retrieved the remains in 2021 because there were lots of fires in August, in late 2020 in the Rocky Mountain National Park, and then we had a lot of snow, so they couldn't get out and get the remains out. Anyway, weird story connected to SOTA, and Dan finished his email with this. So I think it's good that Carrie wrote a trip report and posted it. Had some positive effects, I guess. What can we take away from this? Well, point A, safety, be prepared. You know, at least leave a detailed plan with somebody. Can happen to any of us. Rudy Moder, the guy who disappeared in '83, he was an experienced hiker, so, but he probably didn't have any satellite-based communication device. We can have one today. They are not really cheap, and it's a monthly fee, but if you are in remote areas or bushwhacking, way off the trail, it might be worthwhile thinking about it. And of course, post your trip reports. You never know what the impact it has. And keep your eyes open. In Rocky Mountain National Park alone, there are still 4 people missing. You might be able to find one or the other. So, summit names. And I start with kind of official business. There's a new ARM out there. You can download it with a change, and there's only one change. Name change to Squaw Mountain. It was renamed to Mestahe Mountain. And all the CW guys, if somebody could get back to me and tell me how to send Mestahe in CW, would appreciate that. That at least 2 characters. I have no idea what to do. So Mestahe Mountain is I changed that in the ARM, and the database update will be imminent, sort of by the end of the month, I was told, and you will push that through. Interestingly, the summit was named after a woman. That's not very common, and I'll get back to that. She was also she was a Cheyenne from the Cheyenne tribe and was married to William Bent. And William Bent is the guy who the fort is named after near La Junta. So she was kind of an ambassador, multicultural, multilingual, and facilitated trade and all this good stuff between the settlers and her tribe. So the fact that the summit was named after women made me curious how many other summits are named after women. So I did a little bit of research. So to start with, Colorado has between 4,000 and 5,000 summits, depending who you ask. List of John has roughly 4,400 hard-ranked summit. If you go to Peakery, we are up to 4,876. And if you add Gary Roach's non-hard-ranked peaks, we are over 5,000 peaks. Of these 5,000 peaks, 1,797 qualify for SOTA. So we did something wrong here. We only have not even 50% of the peaks. Anyways, so I found around 70 geographical features such as lakes and peaks and glaciers named after women. And well, yeah, many are not named, but 37 of those are named after women. Not sure, I'm not really sure whether all are conclusive, but I think 37 are named after women, and 15 of them give you some SOTA points. So of all the 5,000, we are down to 15. And if you need more motivation to do something, here's a list of 15 peaks named after women. And 2 of them are not yet activated. Okay, here are some references. Take if you are interested in some background to what I just presented, take a screenshot and follow up. And I'm within my 10 minutes, I guess. So thank you so much for coming and listening, and back to you, Bob.
Questions for Matt?
I would just second the please put trip reports, because I can't tell you how many times I've looked at a summit and wondered if there's access to it. Scott and I were actually talking about this just a couple of days ago when he was traveling in Oklahoma. There's just and I was in Southwest Colorado last week for a quick trip. I didn't have any time to do SOTA summits, but there's some activated summits with no trip reports. And I don't know if people think, well, there's a road, it's easy, but some roads have gates and some roads aren't always open. Some roads are on private property, and you know, it's kind of like, you know, just so helpful. It's really helpful if you have just some kind of information. So I really hope that, especially with the new people that are coming into SOTA, if you do activate a summit and you see there's not a trip report, please add one. And even if there is a trip report and you have something that you think people might find interesting, there's no limit to the number of trip reports you can put in the SOTA database. You can add extra information on there.
Yeah, that's a good point, Curtis. And especially like say there's no report at all, you can go into the SOTA website and just text, right? It doesn't have to be the fancy KX0R report. You can say, I came in from Highway 42, road was good, you know, parked at this trailhead, maybe stick a lat long in there or something. It can be really simple, but it's still helpful.
Matt, I have a question, if I may.
Sure, shoot.
So one of the things I like doing in SOTA is doing the uniques. And I've already activated SQUA. Now that there's a name change, could I go up and reactivate it for a thank you? Yeah.
It's the reference.
That was what I was expecting that, but you know, one can always hope.
And the reference stays the same.
Thank you.
Okay, let's stop there then. Thanks, Matt. That was good. So Curtis, let's do the James Webb thing. I think people will find that interesting, and you know, we're running a little long, but it'll be okay.
Okay, is there a way for you to pause the recording?
I can pause it for you.
Like I don't have a.
But if you don't mind, can you, for the rest of us are just getting to know you guys a little bit, can you give us just a quick synopsis of what you do for a living, and fill us in a little bit? So it's tremendously interesting.
Sure. So.
And Steve, you're up next. And I thought the end-fed half-wave, well, really end-fed antennas in general, I've noticed that it seems like most of the serious HF guys gravitate to some kind of end-fed antenna sooner or later. I know that's not 100%, but so I thought this would be a good tutorial kind of topic, as well as some tips that Steve can share.
So can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about end-fed random wire antennas, also known as an EFRW, and the end-fed half-wave antenna, also known as EFHW. As you'll see, this piece of wire here stretched from my friend Steve K7PX's ski pole off to the almost out of frame on a mast that he carried up there. So this peak is actually it's Talus Peak. It's nicknamed Talus Peak because of all the talus, and it's SP I think 020 is its reference. So what's so good about end-fed wire antennas? Well, they're end-fed. They don't have any coax.
Hey, Steve, I got some little window.
which
popped up in the
is
middle.
create.
There's a little window that says build order. Is that yours?
Oh.
Are you guys seen it?
Let me see.
Yeah, I see it.
I see it too.
Yeah,
right in
that's
the middle of your
because I
picture.
must be sharing. Let me back out of this thing.
You always got such great pictures. We don't want to ruin them.
Yeah. How to do this? Where is?
There it is on the side.
So I'm sharing full screen, but why is it doing that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
don't
I've got a
share
clean.
full screen, just share the application. That might help.
So when I play is it still there?
Yes.
Shoot. Oh, I know what I can do. Is it gone now?
I don't think you're sharing.
I hate this. Yeah, I still got a green window around. So I'm sharing, right?
I'm not seeing a slide.
Is the slide come up?
Nope.
Says you're sharing, but we don't see a slide.
You might be sharing a blank window.
Yeah, that's what it kind of looks like. You could go back to whatever you're
Well, I
doing.
use my time.
I mean, it wasn't the end of the world to have that little window popped up there. It just screws up your pretty pictures.
Yeah. Share screen. Okay.
We're getting a blank window. It says you started screen sharing, but nothing's coming through.
There we go.
Oh, that looks good.
Are we there?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so in-fed random wires. 3 ounces of wire. It's easy and fast to deploy. All you need is possibly one support, if that. Sometimes nature provides that if you're below tree line. Best thing is you don't have to carry any heavy coax. Sometimes you need a counterpoise. I rarely use them unless the radio is RF hot, and then I'll pull a 17-foot piece of wire and attach it to the ground side of the radio. So the KX2, nice thing about it, it has a wide range antenna tuner in it. And the advantage of that is that you can pretty much get a match, 60 through 10 meters, maybe even 6 meters. But I built a little 9-to-1 balun and add that to the KX2, and now you can tune just about any piece of wire that you put up. But it turns out that these baluns are pretty easy to build. There's diagrams all over the internet. If you go looking for a 9-to-1 and random wire, though, it turns out is really not so random. There's a web page called Random Wire Antenna Links, and I forget the guy's name or call sign, but he's gone through and did all the homework for you and computed out the lengths of random wires that are best suited for the ham bands. And I just kind of locked in on these sets of lengths that are in green at the bottom of this gray square, because they're comfortable lengths to deploy on a summit. Maybe not so much the 70 or 84 foot, but most times you can, you've got at least 35 feet to 58 feet of real estate that you can put an antenna up in. I've got to do a plug for a friend out in California, K6ARK. He makes a balun that's just incredibly small, and sells these on Amazon it's a kit, all the parts and pieces for $20. And if you've got Prime, it's, no cost to deliver them. Pushing the wrong button here. Let's get back to, so this balun has 3 build options. You can build it as a 49-to-1, which is great for infid half wave, and I'll get into that, or a 1-to-1 balun or a 9-to-1 balun. So I've got a couple of these myself, which I'm building right now. And he's got a video on how to put all the parts and pieces together. So, infid half wave, I gotta keep going here. Why would you want an infid half wave to be 50 ohms? Well, I've got a bunch of little QRP radios that I like to play with, and none of those have an antenna tuner in it. So you've got to tame, a dipole is 50 ohms center fed, and you can do that with coax. But a piece of wire that's an infid half wave is somewhere between 3,000 to 4,500 ohms impedance at the end of it. And digging around on the internet, I found this, basically it's a transformer that tames that 4,000 ohms down to 50 ohms. And like I said, I've got a bunch of little QRP radios that I've built over the years, and I love to take them up on mountaintops and play with them and kind of vet them out and make use of them. And none of them have an antenna tuner in it. So again, digging through the internet, I came up with this. Let me back up a little bit. I'm an art major. I don't understand how the rabbits run around in some of these circuits, but by hacking and working at Hewlett Packard for 30 some plus years, some of the speak sort of rubbed off on me, and I began to figure out, oh, that's how it works. Anyway, back to transforming high impedances down to 50 ohms. I built a lot of these little transformers in small packages. This is a contact lens case. This one, I used a 35 picofarad capacitor with a type 43 toroid and the transformer, and it worked great. This other one was a 100 puff capacitor across the toroid, and it's in a little dental floss case. And this one's in an SD card case. Then I said, hey, wait a minute. I've seen some guys put traps in a end-fed antenna. So I had the transformer built. I tuned a 20-meter half wave to best SWR, and then built a trap. And that was an interesting experience because, first of all, I didn't know what a trap was. Basically, it's an LC circuit that is resonant just below the band that you want to trap. In other words, for 20 meters, it was it worked out to be 14.03, and I'm going to be operating up at 14.060. So this was the ideal frequency, and I wound up with two traps, a single piece of wire, and a fixed matching unit, no coax. This whole antenna weighs less than 3 ounces. And actually, I added a variable capacitor to the tuning unit and was able to get the SWR down even further. And I'm still playing with different circuits in terms of a tunable circuit. There's one I came across recently that uses a tapped toroid, which allows you to vary the impedance, and then this little VSWR circuit that tells you what the VSWR is with a LED that diminishes in brightness. So my go-to antenna still today is a trapped end-fed half wave with a fixed tuner. It all fits in this little sunglass case and weighs, actually the antenna probably weighs less than what the case does.
Okay, Steve, we better wrap up.
Another plug. Okay. In building traps, K6 ARK has a 30-minute video, and he goes through and talks about how to put them together, how to design them, how to measure them, and there's also some printed circuit boards that you can get from Osha Park. I've got an arsenal of masks and winders and whatnot, and some tools that I carry with me. So that's pretty much it.
Questions for Steve?
I have a couple questions. Steve, have you ever used one of your end-fed half waves on a band for which it's not resonant by using, like the tuner in your KX2? And if so, have you ever had a problem doing that?
Yeah, I've done that, but what I did was I unplugged it from the transformer matching unit and just plugged it directly into the KX2 and let the transformer or let the antenna tuning unit match it.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. And then the other question I had was on the end-fed random waves, random wires, have you ever looked at them on an antenna analyzer to see kind of what the SWR was in the various ham bands that you tend to operate on? Like how close are they to, you know, 1-to-1 match? Are they 2-to-1? Are they 3-to-1? Are they 5-to-1? Do you have any idea?
That would be a good project. And I think that's what the VE3 gentleman that, I think his name is Jack, that page of random antenna wire links. If you take a look at that, he talks about what impedance some of those wires are, and why they're good for the ham bands, because they're lower impedance than, you know, just taking a 100-foot wire and trying to load it on the ham bands.
Yeah, not on that article, but there's another article written by another guy, and it's on the Ballon Designs website too, where they talk about the different links, and then they show like the SWRs that they get on all the ham bands for those different links. And there are some of the links of antenna where they're getting less than 2-to-1 on, you know, most of the ham bands. And I just don't understand how that's possible. It doesn't model that way when I try to model it. So I think there's more going on there than, you know, maybe there's some losses in the Unin or something, but I just don't know how they get the SWRs that low.
Yeah.
Without a tuner.
Yeah. You know, one of the things, from my practical experience, one of the things I've noticed, I can go up and use a half-wave 20-meter antenna on Mount Hermon and work both coasts, and sometimes into Europe, sometimes into Southeast Asia, with, you know, reasonable signal reports. But recently I've taken up like an 85-foot, matter of fact, sometimes longer than that, piece of wire, and I've tuned that on 20 meters with the KX2, you know, extended wide range tuner, and it's more wire. It's what, a half wave on, well, 35 feet on 20 meters, and now I'm using a wire that's about 3 times longer than that. The signal reports, and this is, you know, it's not scientific, but the signal reports on the longer wire seem like they're better than the shorter wire. And I don't know, I probably ought to try that same experiment with RBN or something, but anyway.
Hey, Steve.
Yeah.
Real quick here, when you deploy your infed, whether it be random or resonant, do you orient it, you know, from your operating position? Is the antenna to the north or south or east or west, or what are you finding for your orientation? And I'll pose that to the others as well, for located, you know, here in Colorado for your activations.
Yeah, my favorite position is just happens to be where I can deploy the wire north and south. So in other words, I'm aiming east and west, and that seems to be optimum. I've had some other situations where, you know, just because of the real estate and the environment, I've had to put the wire oriented east and west and beaming north and south. But it didn't make a lot of difference. It seems like the stations, the population centers, East Coast and West Coast, you know, my QSO map that I get off the web looks pretty much the same.
Okay, we better stop there.
I just wanted to do one plug here for, Matt mentioned trip reports. I do a trip report and I post it on Facebook, and the editor from CQ magazine happened to pick it up and used it for the, I think this is the March or February cover for CQ magazine, and then inside, he basically, you know, just kind of lifted my Facebook text of this was when Shane N0QLR and I went up on Mount Herman, and I was demonstrating what HF, since Shane had done several activations on 2 meters, I was demonstrating, you know, how far you can reach out with 5 watts in a wire. And the second contact we got was Chris, F4WBN in Southwest France, which was just awesome because it's, you know, was a great contact. Plus all the regular chasers showed up, and it was a fun day up in Mount Herman. Anyway.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
Sure.
We got one more, definitely last but not least. Carrie, KX0R, is going to tell us about S2S contacts.
Okay, we got there we go. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Sounds great.
Oh, you're muted now, Carrie. Carrie, you're muted.
Okay, there we go.
There you go.
Yeah, some surprising things happened there, and I can't really look at my outline on the screen and talk at the same time. Apparently, it didn't want to do that. So I'm gonna, since it's at the end, I'm just gonna summarize and kind of cover the hot spots. This talk is about summit to summit contacts, and I do a lot of summit to summit contacts. And it all kind of started when I first started doing SOTA. Like most of you, I was really concentrating on getting, you know, enough contacts to get the points. I was concentrating also on doing unique summits and on first activations. There were a lot of first activations available up in this area back then. So I concentrated on those things, and a lot of the peaks I was doing, I had never been up. But along the way, I started getting summit to summit contacts from people. I was using a little ATS-3B rig, which is a tiny little QRP rig. It's very simple, but people would call me, and I'd hear these S2S people, and I knew what was going on. They'd call me, and I'd work them. And this is mostly on CW, of course. And after a while, I started looking at the scores on the SOTA database, and I discovered that my scores, that I was getting hundreds and hundreds of summit to summit contacts, or hundreds and hundreds of points. And that's because a summit to summit contact counts both for chaser points, and you're also getting the activator points that you're on the summit. And you get extra summit to summit points when you activate a peak the first time in the year. And without getting into all that, basically you get a lot of summits. You get a lot of summit to summit contacts, and you get a lot of points. And after a year or two, I was doing chasing at the same time. I was chasing from home. And I started to realize that I was getting almost as many chaser points from activations as I was from home. And I started to kind of, you know, over time, I started to realize if I really try hard to get S2S contacts, I'm going to get thousands of chaser points, and I'm going to get thousands of S2S points. And all I have to do is try a little harder. And so I discovered various ways to do that. It took a long time to kind of get into it. It was kind of one of these things you kind of start and you get fascinated with it, and it grows on you. And I would compare it to some kind of situations in life like gambling, where you win and you develop a desire to get that kick or that little change in your brain when it happens. When you get an S2S contact, particularly one that's difficult or a lot of points, there's a real keen thrill to it. And many of them take a lot of skill. You have to be a very good operator. You have to listen really carefully. Many times you have to ask for repeats. You have to try to work people that you didn't think you could work. And many times you can work them. And the more you do it, the better you get. So I made a big long list to explain. I'm not going to even do the whole thing, but I will say this, that you have to be on this, you have to do the exact opposite of what some of the people here have explained about tonight. You have to spend a long time on the summit, and so you can get as many S2S contacts as possible. You have to be willing to sit there and listen sometimes for 20 or 30 minutes and hunt for people. You have to be a really good listener, because that's where you're going to get a lot of the contacts. But you also will get a lot of them if you just call CQ. But it's better to call CQ on several bands than it is to just do one band. Of course, 20 meters is nice and hot for CW. We love that. But you'll get more S2Ss some days on 40 meters, even if conditions are rough. And that's because we have a lot of people in adjacent states that go out and they do 40 meters, and you get nice strong signals on 40 meters from those shorter hops. So every band has its little thrills. And in the end, if you want to get a lot of S2S contacts, you've got to be on different bands. Another way to get a lot of them is if you have a smartphone and you can see the internet spots, you can actually chase people that way. Now, I don't generally do that, but sometimes I go with W7UM and he has a smartphone and we're on the same summits together. And when we do that, we talk to each other on 2 meters. And so we exchange information. And I tell Mark about people I've worked or found, and he tells me about people he's found on the spots. So it's kind of like we both win, because both of us learn about people that are on the air at that moment that we didn't know were there. So it's all about intelligence, and it's all about finding out where these guys are. Now, the reason it's really hard is that some of these activators don't stay there very long, and they jump from band to band. So this is a very challenging activity, and I'll just tell you a few things about it that you might be surprised to hear. If you have a good day, which might be a busy Saturday when there's a lot of people on the air, or a busy Sunday, or maybe just a lucky day when things were all worked out and there's a lot of people on summits around the country, you can get over 100 S2S points in one session. And the way you do it is you just work 10 or 15 people who are on summits ranging from 6 to 10 points. And if you can get enough of those guys, you can go way over 100. You can't do it every time, though. Sometimes you're lucky to get 10 or 12. So there's this incredible randomness to it. Your preparation is incredibly important. You need to look at the alerts and maybe even write them down before you go up that morning, so you know who's on the air and what frequencies they're going to be on. You want as much intelligence as you can possibly deal with, because the more you have, the more S2Ss you'll get. At some point several years ago, I started to realize that I could possibly be #1 in the US if I just kept doing what I was doing. And that's exactly what happened. I'm over 40,000 S2S points now, and the guy that's the top in the world is at 48,000. And there's no way that I'm ever going to catch him, because he's a Swiss activator and he is the second top activator in the entire world. And he is a better activator than I am. I've studied his logs. I've looked at his S2S logs, and he is one of the best. He does honest, serious, hard activations of summits with lots of points in Switzerland. And he's as good at this game as anybody is. And I'm extremely proud to be behind him at this point. Is this nuts? Yes, this is totally nuts. This is an obsessive kind of behavior. And I'm enjoying it because it keeps me out. It keeps me in shape. And it's very challenging mentally. And the only thing about it is that none of your friends, your wife, or anybody will ever understand how you could ever do this. because it makes no sense to them. It's completely irrelevant to the rest of the world. It's just for kicks. If you ever get sucked into this, keep that in mind. You have to have a reality check. You're not the S2S points aren't worth anything. They're simply in the database, and they may be important to you and a few dozen other people, but most of the world doesn't care a thing. So you've got to keep your head together. But I'll tell you what, when I get on the air, many times, the first thing I do, unlike most of you, I do not call CQ. I tune around, and often at 1700C or 1600C, if I can get up there that early, I discover somebody calling CQ SOTA, and I work them, and then I tune around on each band, and sometimes I get as many as 4 or 5 S2S points before I even call CQ. I can get my 4 contacts just by hunting. And you know, the more you do it, the better you get. Now, there's a special case, if you go with somebody else on a summit, you gain some advantages, but you lose also, because that other guy is on one of the bands where you want to work the S2S guys, and now you can't work them because he's in the way. And if you try to work on the same band as him, and you're only 100 or 200 yards away, that's going to be a problem for both of you. Although we have done it. We have done it. We've actually coexisted on the same band, sometimes worked the same guy, taking turns, and the KX2 will stand it. The front end does not burn out, provided, you know, we've never lost a front end yet. It'll kick off the preamp, and you're horribly overloaded, and you're hearing all kinds of products from both radios, but you can often just do it. And don't be afraid to try that. Now, if you're on separate bands, like he's on 30, I'm on 20 meters. If we're at least say 200 yards, we don't know the other guy is there. Those radios are that good. So this is a testimonial for the KX2 and a hard front end. It's got a tough front end, and you can run 10 watts on both ends, and you can be on different bands and you don't even know the other guy's there. At worst, you'll get a little desensing. Maybe you'll hear a few products, but you don't need to be afraid of that. You don't need to take turns, at least not with these radios. So what else can I cover here? There's just tons and tons, and there's not enough time to talk about it, except that it's really fun. And at the same time, it's a total distraction. And by that, I mean, if you want to do 2 or 3 summits in a day, this is not a good activity because it will tie you down on one summit, and you won't want to leave because there's just too many S2Ss going on. Sometimes it's so intense that you can't work them. You actually have in your brain, you've got plans to work 2 or 3 guys that you know are there. Either your buddies told you they're there, or you've got the alerts, or you've tuned around, and you tune around and you find them. And then the game becomes, how can you work this guy and this guy and this guy and not lose them both? And it's all a race because they're gonna QSY. Some of them are just going to work a few guys and move on. Lots of times they're sitting on a peak, the wind is blowing, they're freezing cold, they want to get off there so bad, and you call them S2S, what do they think? What do they think when they hear your little weak signal? And you want to make them wait and maybe even drag it out so you can get the whole thing done. So this is, and sometimes you're the guy that's sitting there freezing. The sun's gone behind the tree, the wind's blowing, you're up sitting in 2 or 3 feet of snow, like on Deer Mountain the other day. I was up there like that. And you know, it's like, how long can you stand it? And you hear another S2S, and you got to work that guy. You got to get him in the log. Maybe it only takes 2 or 3 minutes, but then there are all these this is the reason for the title. That's the joy. Then there's the agony. So the agony is you miss a lot of them. You don't get them. Maybe you spend 10 or 15 minutes sitting there listening for the pile, trying to crack the pile, or trying to, you get the guy, but then he can't copy your stuff, or he's a new guy and he's not very good at CW. And so you have to slow down and you have to repeat, and it becomes a total test of patience. It's one of the hardest things you'll ever do. And the only thing I've got to say about that is the more of it you do, the better you get, the wiser you become, the more tolerant you become. and your freezing fingers can stand it for a little longer. And I've got some little black gloves I put on, and I can operate with those too. But you know, it's definitely specialized. Now, here's the other part. There's a lot of guys, maybe a few dozen in the country, that are into this as much as I am, and they'll do it a lot. There's a lot of them with thousands of S2S points. The number 2 guy in the US right now is K6EL. And I'll tell you a little bit about Elliot, just a tiny bit. I don't know him at all, hardly.
We need
But
to
he
wrap
does.
up here, Kerry.
Huh?
Go ahead, but we need to wrap up.
Okay, right. Elliot doesn't even do regular activator points anymore. He does nothing but S2S, as far as I know. I've looked at his logs, and what he does is he goes on convenient peaks near where he lives in the San Francisco area, and he works S2S for hours, and he does it even more than I do. And he is actually gaining on me. He's around 20,000 points now. So, you know, he's got the bug, and he's the top activator. He's had a long ham radio career, and I think he's still a member of the MT of SOTA. So, you know, people in high places are doing this. It's really sad to go home sometimes and look at all the spots and discover all the people that were there that you never got. You know, you'll typically get a third of the ones that you could have worked, and then there's another third that you couldn't have ever worked because of propagation, but there's still another third that were totally there. You could have logged them and you didn't get them. So that's the agony if you really care about it. So it's kind of a trap, but it's kind of a pleasant trap. And the thing I like about it is it takes a whole lot of skill. It's like the hardest thing I've ever done probably in radio, because you got to work so many weak people, and your brain's going crazy trying to, sometimes you're competing with the other guy on the summit at the same time and stuff like that, and you're trying to negotiate with each other. Enough said. Are there any questions?
Questions for Kerry?
So you've been warned. This is why I do it. I may not do it forever. There's a definite chance that I'll just kind of say, you know, I've done this for a while. I think about it occasionally. It's not a, you know, it's not to be taken lightly, and instantly you got to be retired to do this.
No way. You're going to stay on it. You're on it for a long more time.
You got to be retired. Don't even, if you're not retired, just work a few S2Ss who call you, and maybe tune around and see what else you can find. And there's kind of there's some of them that you can get really quick and you get really good at it. But if you're trying to max it out, it's tough.
I think there's, yeah, if you really listen tonight, there's a lot of examples of, oh, I want to go do this with SOTA. I want to do unique summits, or I want to do a first activation and do a bunch of those, or I'm just after the points, you know, whatever it is, carries the S2S. It's a really flexible program. Of course, we know it's never about the points, right? It's
not about the points at all, no.
But if I looked at the S2S for the W0C group, and yeah, Kerry's got 41,724 points, and the next closest one is Whiskey Alpha 6 Mike, and Brad is at 7,024. So Kerry's got quite the gap there.
Well, anybody that's over a couple thousand right now has either been doing it a long time or they're pretty serious. I'd say anybody that's got more than a few thousand is serious. They've got the bug.
Keep standing on the gas, Kerry. Keep standing on the gas, brother.
There is one other little cute thing about it. You can do it. You can use the same peaks over and over, because you're not trying to get activator points. What you want is a peak close to home that you can get up on early and catch all the guys on the East Coast, or maybe even try to get somebody in Europe. It does happen. But if you go to a peak that requires a long drive and a long hike, you're going to have a much narrower window to work with. So it's kind of inverted to what you would do to get activator points. But there's a catch. If you're always doing a 1-point summit, how desirable are you to the other activators? Do they care about making an S2S with you for 1 point? Not as much as if you're on a 6-pointer or an 8-pointer or a 10-pointer. So you've got to keep that in mind. And you know, every S2S, every activation is different. That's the other thing. Everyone is totally different and completely unpredictable.
Okay, well, I think that wraps it up for tonight. Thanks to everybody for coming out, especially you guys towards the East Coast. It's getting kind of late over there, but really appreciate it. I think we have a really good SOTA community in Colorado. I tell you, it's a good bunch of guys, and they have different interests and all that, but they're all friendly and fun. So you new folks, take advantage of that. We do have the groups.io that Walt W0CP set up. It's usually pretty quiet, so it's not going to overload your inbox. But you know, if you have questions about like Steve's NFED antennas, go ahead and ask them out there, or ask Steve directly, of course. But we can have some conversations there too to share some of these ideas. But anyway, with that, I'll say good night.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks for
putting this
organizing,
together.
Bob.
Hi, guys. Thank
Good night, guys.
Good night.
Yeah,
Bob, thanks, Joyce.
Good night.
Thanks to
Good
everyone.
night.
Good night. 7-3s.
PBF, go to bed.
Good night, everybody.
Recording.